Welcome to another edition of the SprintCarLimited.com Deep Dive presented by Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA. Joining us on the show today is Toyota's Executive Competition Engineering Technical Director, Andy Graves. Before we get to Andy, Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA is your one-stop shop on the way to the races. They have fresh-made sandwiches and subs with all the fixins, perfect for a night at the racetrack. Dottie's has everything you need in one location, including a full-service deli, wide selection of groceries, and gas. If you're looking to dine in, head over to the Hive Coffee House and Cafe for a great sandwich. There's also a seasonal greenhouse on site, and Dottie's Crab House, where you can dine in for seafood and all-you-can-eat Maryland crabs. Head over to the corner of Canal and Bull Road in Dover, PA. Dottie's Family Market has you covered. Now here's Andy. Andy, welcome to the Deep Dive. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate you having me.
No problem. We hear your name a lot from Buddy Kofoid and anybody associated with Toyota, and we wanted to have you on just so people can learn a little more about you. And you're the executive director of engineering technical for TRD.
Yeah, that's correct. It's actually the executive competition director. It involves laying out the landscape for TRD USA and in our activities in NASCAR, in NHRA, IMSA, the sprint car program, the midget program, off-road program. So we've got a lot going on, that's for sure.
So you're a busy guy.
A little busy, yep.
I've heard you don't sleep.
I sleep. I just have to find wherever I can lay down to do it. But it's great. It's combined two of my passions, auto racing and traveling. So it's a pretty neat job.
So you said about racing being a passion. When did that passion begin?
So I was born and raised in a little town just north of Syracuse, a town by the name of Mexico, New York.
Yep.
And my dad started racing a couple of years before I was born. So really, from my first memories, it was always being in the garage with him. And he raced super modifieds at Oswego Speedway. So I basically grew up at Oswego Speedway. And I guess it was about when I was 12 years old, my father started a speed shop. He bought an auto parts business and started a speed shop. And in order to spend more time with my dad, I hung out there every weekend and every chance that I could get at night. And he taught me how to bend tubing and weld, use the mill and the lathe, run the auto speed shop. So really, I mean, I've never had a real job, Jeremy. I mean, I've always been in racing. I think one time I cut my neighbor's grass for $5 one time, and that might be the only $5 I've ever made outside of racing. So it's been pretty cool, and I still remember the day that I decided that I wanted to make racing my livelihood. I was 14 years old working at my dad's speed shop, and Jeff Swindell and Daryl Saucier showed up with this 53-foot chaparral, and my dad built a wing for them for the Syracuse Super Nationals, and so that would have been 1984, and I helped them that weekend, and I was hooked ever since. I realized then, that I could make racing a career, and that's all I've ever wanted to do.
So you're working in the speed shop. Did you ever race yourself?
Yeah, I had just a little bit, not much. I drove, our family after my father stopped driving. We had a factory super modified, a house car that Gene Lee Gibson drove, and then Doug Hevron drove, and then Mike Ordway drove. And I drove that a little bit in practice. I never competed at Oswego, but I did drive in practice a couple times. And then I bought an old Stanton sprint car, and myself and Joe Gosick, who ran at Oswego and still runs at Oswego for years, we were partners on that. And we had Davy Brown Jr. build us an engine, and between me and Joe, we ran a handful of ESS sprint car races in around New York. And so I drove a little bit, but I figured out pretty quick, Jeremy, that I was way more competitive turning wrenches on them than sitting behind the wheel. So I just wanted the best chance to win as many races as I could, and that ended up being working on them and not driving them.
So you start working on them. And how long did you do that? And how do you end up at Toyota?
It's a bit of a story. So as I'm working in my father's speed shop, again from 12 years old, then when I got into high school, every day after school was over, I would just walk to the speed shop, and I'd work all afternoon, and then I'd get on the school activity bus that would run at 7 o'clock at night after football practice. And so no one knew any different. They all thought I was playing a sport, but I was just using that to get back home. And I started basically running the speed shop for my father. He ended up he was originally an industrial battery salesman, and he decided that he wanted to get back into that for a more stable income and the insurance. And so I continued to run the speed shop for my dad. He sold the auto parts business. So really, at the end, he owned the building and the speed shop. And right before I started my senior year in high school, he decided he wanted to sell the speed shop as well. And I worked out a deal to actually buy it from him. So the entire time in 1988, while I was a senior in high school, I owned the business, and we built super modifieds. I got to be friends with Irish Sanders from Hoosier Racing Tire. And anytime that Irish needed tires tested, if it was at Oswego Speedway, he'd ask me to pick one of our teams. If it was Star Speedway up in New Hampshire, I had teams there, and same at Sandusky Speedway in Ohio. So I was always heavily involved with Hoosier testing tires. And then in 1989 is when really, the sprint cars started taking off on pavement with Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN. And the All Stars ran their first asphalt race, or one of their first asphalt races, at Sandusky Speedway. And Irish and Hoosier Racing Tire hired me for the day as a consultant to come help. I got there to Sandusky Speedway, and Hoosier said, "Hey, we'd really like you to help this Jeff Gordon kid who was driving the McBride and Schaff 23S car at the time." He said, "We'd like you just to focus on him. He's our best Hoosier shod driver here." So I did. We ended up being quick time that night, won the dash, and then we lapped the field in the feature. And Jeff's stepfather, John Bickford, immediately asked me. He said, "Hey, I, I'd like to. We're going to run the entire ESPN series next year. I'd like to hire you to move to Pittsburgh, Indiana, to be our mechanic on the sprint car." So I went back over the next couple of months. I packed up the speed shop, packed up my things, and so it was right at the beginning of 1990. I moved to Pittsburgh, and we had a great year in 1990 on with Jeff in the sprint car. And then Bob East hired me during the day to help assemble midgets at Beast Enterprises. And that led to Steve Lewis hiring me to turn wrenches on Stan Fox's midget when we didn't have sprint car races. So I was turning wrenches on Stan Fox's midget and Jeff's sprint asphalt sprint car. And we got to the end of 1990, and Jeff had a lot of opportunities to go to many places. I remember one morning, it's a Sunday morning, Jeff and I were sitting around getting ready to watch football games during the winter, and got a call from Jackie Stewart, um, wanting to talk to Jeff about coming to Europe. So Jeff had many opportunities, and I had an opportunity when I was working for Bob and Janice. Right next door to them was Ken Howes, who worked for Hendrick Motorsports. And Mr. Hendrick had just finished running the Corvette GTP car, and Ken Howes was his team manager, and he was restoring the couple of cars they had. And I got to be friendly with Ken, and Ken would see me every morning. I'd be there working at Bob and Janice's speed shop, and then 9, 10 o'clock at night. Every once in a while, Ken would come by there just to after dinner, checking on things, and I would still be there working on Stan's midgets in the other bay. And he asked me if I ever slept, kind of similar to what you did. And evidently it grew into an opportunity. Hendrick Motorsports wanted to start building their own cars in 1991. So ultimately, I got hired by Ken Howes, Gary Dehart at Hendrick Motorsports. And so I packed up my stuff and I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And at the same time, Jeff got offered a deal with Ford Motor Company to run the Busch Series.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff and I both actually moved to Charlotte together, and we got an apartment together, and then bought a house together in Charlotte. And then ultimately, I introduced Jeff to Mr. Hendrick, and Mr. Hendrick hired him on the spot when he was free from his obligation with Ford. And so I was Ray Abraham and myself were the first two team members for the Rainbow Warriors in the 24 team in 1993. And then I moved. I was assistant crew chief for Terry Labonte in 1996 when we won the championship, and ultimately was crew chief for Ricky Craven on the Budweiser car, and then back again on Terry's car in 98 and 99. And I got a phone call one day from Jeff Swindell, my old buddy, and he said he had an IndyCar owner that wanted to meet me and asked me if I was going to be home the following day, which I was. So they pulled into my driveway, and Jeff pulled in with Chip Ganassi, and had a conversation with Chip, and he wanted to hire me and move back to Indianapolis, because at that time, right, Champ Car was not running the Indy 500, but Chip wanted to go back to the Indy 500. So he asked me to be the team manager for the IRL Indy 500 program, and I couldn't say no to it. So I moved back to Indianapolis for 2000, and was team manager for the 2000 Indy 500 with Juan Pablo Montoya, who won the race, and our second car was Jimmy Vasser. And I think between the two cars, I think we led I think it was 178 out of the 200 laps. We had an amazing month of May, and won Indy. And then Chip ended up buying in 2001. He bought Felix Sabates' NASCAR team. So I moved back to Charlotte to run Chip's NASCAR program for the next 6 years. And through that opportunity, as I was working for Chip at the beginning of 2000 on the IndyCar program, not only did Chip want to go back to the Indy 500, but Chip also transitioned from Honda engines to Toyota. So I ended up at a lot of dinners with upper management at Toyota and became very friendly with them. And when Toyota finally decided they wanted to go NASCAR Cup racing, uh, they asked me if I was interested, and so sat down with Chip and we worked out a situation to for me to leave and join Toyota. And that would have been, I think I joined Toyota in October of 2006. And 2007 was the first year that we ran the Cup Series, or that Toyota ran the NASCAR Cup Series. So I've been there a little over 19 years now.
Wow. A lot of
Twisted story.
no, it's just a lot of names from the past that I mean, I'm 53, so I remember those names. I remember seeing those guys. I remember, I saw Jeff Gordon run the Kings Royal.
Yeah.
So it's just I remember Thursday Night Thunder, watching that. So it just brings back a lot of memories. Um, so much for family time.
Yeah, I didn't participate in a lot of family activities, I should say.
So you get to Toyota. At Were they into the midget stuff yet?
Just getting into it when I joined. Larry Slutter was Larry was working at Tier D, and I knew Larry from back in 1990 when I was living in Indianapolis. Larry was, he built a lot of great midget engines, and Jeff did drive some midgets for the Kelly and Kelly team out in California, which Larry supplied engines to. So I knew Larry and we got along great, and he did a great job building that base midget engine. I really wasn't involved in that. Larry already had it kind of up and going by the time I got there, but it was really cool to be um, observing that, and obviously my focus was on NASCAR within the TRD umbrella at that time. But later in 2015, I got promoted to um, technical director at TRD, and at that time, I got to be more involved with Keith Kuntz and Pete Willoughby, and their activities. So it was great to be back involved with that.
So my question now, and I'll transition to sprint cars in a minute because that's
Okay.
you started me that process. It seemed like in 2019, but I think a lot of people would want to know, how do you guys select the drivers who come into the program? Is it Do you sit in a kind of a room and look at a bunch of video? Do they kind of petition you? Do you go out to tracks and look at them? What's that process like? And there's only so many spots in Cup. There's only so many spots in Xfinity now. Xfinity, and I think even people like me are, well, why does that guy get a shot, not that guy? Or I think there's a lot of that. And I'm sure you hear a ton of it. How does that process work?
Yeah, inside TRD, we have a what's called TD2. I'm sure you've probably heard that before, and you've seen it on some of the fire suits of some of our drivers, including Buddy. Buddy's Kofoid is a member of TD2, and it's really, it stands for Toyota Development Drivers, and so we've built that, and Tyler Gibbs, now our president, he started it with Jack Irving, who's our general manager today,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's in the hands of Trent Rodriguez, who works for Jack. And really, Jeremy, that got started because we had uh, at the time driving for Keith Kuntz, right? We had Kyle Larson, we had Christopher Bell, we had Rico Abreu, and
Good lineup.
pretty damn good lineup right there.
Yes.
I would still take all three of them today in about anything that you wanted to race. Um, and and so Kyle was the senior member of that group, and Tyler Gibbs and Jack Irving, they took Kyle around to a lot of our cup teams, trying to make introductions and trying to help him get his foot in the door with NASCAR. And so at that time, that we didn't have it wasn't a driver development program. It just happened that Keith and Pete happened to attract those guys because Keith and Pete have an outstanding, always have had an outstanding midget program, and we just happened to be the suppliers of the engines, and over time became better and greater partners with them. Well, as we were trying to help Larson make the introductions, ultimately none of our groups really wanted to talk to him unless he had money. And ultimately, in a lot of ways, it's sad to say, but that's what makes the sport go around these days. Is maybe you don't have to write the check, but you better have a sponsor that's willing to write the check, that likes you and wants to support you. So at that time, we didn't have any of our teams that wanted to do that, and Chip Ganassi stepped in actually, and offered Kyle an opportunity to run them in ARCA and Xfinity, and then some cup races. And so we lost Larson from the family, in a way. We still enjoy, Kyle still runs our engines on the midget side. But we lost him out of our pipeline, so to speak, because we didn't feel like we did a great job of really greasing the skids and providing better opportunities and visibility until it was too late. So that led us, TRD, to say, okay, we just lost Larson. We're not going to have the same thing happen to Christopher Bell. We're not going to have the same thing happen to Rico. And then when Kyle did leave, then we had Tanner Thorson backfill the third seat at Keith's midget program. And so we did the same thing with Tanner at that time. And that was to provide and start this TD2 program, and where we're in it. And it's changed so much from that time to today, where these drivers are getting educational opportunities from us on how to eat better, how to take care of your health better, what to do to safeguard yourself from concussions, how to interact with your teams better, how to look at data. So there's a whole program that goes into that. And it all started because we lost Kyle Larson, in all honesty, and Christopher's been our poster boy. Christopher, we put him in asphalt. Not only was he wildly successful with the midgets, but we put him in late models and he won. Put him in ARCA and he won. We got him to trucks and he won. And then it starts getting a lot harder, because to run the late model ARCA takes a little bit of money. You start getting past that into trucks, and then Xfinity. We have to find a sponsor that's willing to associate themselves. But we go to bat and we try to help find those sponsors to pair with the driver. And we were able to do that for Christopher. And Christopher took every opportunity and knocked it out of the ballpark and got himself to Joe Gibbs Racing on the Cup side. We were doing the same thing with Rico, got Rico to the trucks. Rico, by many standards, had a very successful truck season, but Rico's heart wasn't in it either. He enjoyed racing on dirt. He enjoyed that part much better than the politics of NASCAR. And I'm sure Rico can give all of his reasons much better than I can. But it just didn't work out. And Rico, we view him as still part of our family. Still have a great relationship with Rico. He still from time to time will run midgets with TRD Power. So that's kind of to a long-winded answer to your question, Jeremy. It's all about timing. It's all about finding sponsors that have the money, and then you have to have the driver that's ready for the next step at the same time to move up.
And a sponsor might like one driver over another driver. Maybe it's not even a, say, a talent level thing. It's a, I don't know, look, personality, whatever.
Yep. How that driver, does that driver and what he portrays, does it fit the philosophy or the demographic for that company? Um, y- you know, you have Bass Pro, right? To today, Chase does Briscoe does an outstanding job with Bass Pro. I'm not sure that we could ever sell Christopher Bell to for a Bass Pro. Just and that's just an example, right?
Mhm.
Of what one driver, that talent level, they might be equals, but a driver that portrays their message and fits what their demographic is, that's what it's all about.
No, that's interesting because I mean, look, we all stand around in circles, at the in the dirt world and go, well, why? Okay, why not Buddy? I've saw Buddy when he was in 2017, and I thought he was, and I still think he's going to be the best sprint car driver on the planet very soon.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was on that path, and then all of a sudden, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and again, it's timing, and I don't think by any stretch, I don't think that chapter is closed either,
Oh,
Jeremy. Um, I think timing wise, it led to a situation where the pipeline wasn't ready for Buddy to move up, or sponsorship wasn't presenting itself at the same time, and Buddy was still running midgets, and he started filling in more time running the 410s, and then it got to a place where we didn't see a natural path for Buddy to move through the NASCAR landscape. But at the same time, we had this huge opportunity on the TRD 410 program with our partnership with Roth. And so we went to Buddy and said, hey, the timing's just not right on the NASCAR side, but we'd like to get you in and drive the Roth 83 JR car at that time,
mhm.
and let's figure out how to make that happen. And he agreed, and very very quickly, Dennis and Teresa Roth and Todd Ventura agreed, and it was just natural. Dylan Buswell happened to present himself; he was available at the same time, and I'm sure we'll get more into the story on the
Sure.
Tier D 410 side. But one of the first guys that I was talking to was Aaron Reitzel, and Aaron Dylan was crew chiefing for Aaron on the 87 car at that time. So Dylan is one of the first guys that I was showing drawings before there was any actual metal parts of the engine, and getting some feedback and understanding what he had to deal with. And so when the opportunity presented itself to in the middle of 2023 to put Dylan and Buddy in the second Roth car, we jumped on it, and obviously they're making us look like geniuses right now.
So we're going to get to the 410 now. In 2019, how did, I guess you went to the Outlaws in 2019 and started discussing the Toyota, getting involved in sprint car race with the motor. What led
Yep.
to that? What made you guys make that leap? You were trenched in midgets. Was it just a natural progression that you could have guys move up? Or what was it that led to the development of the 410?
Yeah, Jeremy, so there was always conversations. There had been really since I joined just about, man, it'd be neat one day to do a 410 sprint car engine. That'd be really cool. And as we had more success on the midget side, um, that was something that would come up from time to time. And then in 2015, when I got promoted to being technical director, it was I wanted to make it happen. Once again, if you go back to the fall of 1984, being an 18 or a 14-year-old kid, seeing Jeff Swindell's big white Shepherd trailer rolled in,
Yeah.
I thought that would be really cool. And so in 2017, we won our second NASCAR Cup championship with Martin Truex Jr. And so we just won the second championship in 3 years since I'd been technical director. So let's just say the timing was right, and I had a lot of momentum behind me. And I pitched it to our management to go ahead and kind of add another step to the ladder from midgets to 410 sprint cars, uh, when the timing wasn't right in the TD2 pipeline to get into asphalt. And how do we do that? And how do we become and continue to be, a good citizen within, your local or grassroots, or dirt racing. And that's important to us in Tier D to promote racing on many different levels and help young drivers. And so I got it approved by management about the middle of 2018, and we started kind of laying out some designs. And I knew pretty quick before we actually started cutting metal that we needed to make sure that we had the buy-in from the World of Outlaws. So I went to Knoxville in 2019 and met with Carlton Reimers and Tom Devitt, and we sat down, and I basically laid out how we envisioned doing this, and it was really about, Tier D coming in and designing an engine, but trying to use as many of the suppliers that's already in the ecosystem currently, for sprint cars, and not for us to run anyone out, but actually to try to include them. Even to the point where before we decided to cast our own block, we went to Kathy Donovan and asked Kathy if she would do the block for us. And and they're so busy that they had to turn us down. But that's what we want to do. Again, being part of the community and try to fit in the ecosystem the best way we could. And obviously that was music to Tom and Carlton's ears, to have another OEM come in, but participate in the right way, support the series, and not to run a bunch of suppliers off, but actually include them in the process. And so they blessed it immediately, and we kept them up to speed and up to date on a month by month basis, pretty much, during our design and testing phase. And so, and then it wasn't too long, only maybe a month or two after I met with Carlton and Tom at Knoxville, I knew that, of course, we have a long relationship with Rick Long and Speedway Engines, that does all of our midget engines. And I knew to tackle the 410, we needed to have a second engine builder, and we needed some more input. And going back to my friendship and relationship with Kyle Larson, Kyle was running a lot of Ryder engines, and he raved about it, and suggested that I meet Tom Ryder. And so through Lucas Wolf, I got connected to Tom, and Lucas Wolf and RC Fagel connected me with Tom Ryder, and we went and met Tom. And so right from the very start, we had some preliminary plans, but but Tom weighed in and Rick weighed in, and we all worked together to produce the engine that we have today.
How important was it? Because Ford broke in as well, and they've
Yes.
had a lot of problems. I think they've had to do some things. I think they maybe went all in house right away, where you guys didn't do that. And then you got motor people who are already established in this industry. How big was it for the development of this thing? And then once you had some problems, which we'll talk about those as well, to
Yep.
get corrected, uh, to have these two guys who are established in Speedway and Rider to be able to help you with this whole process and just navigate it.
Yeah, that's I'd like to think it's you know, Jeremy, my experience and everything that I've as we've talked today, I've always been around great racers and great people, and I've learned many lessons from them along the way, and I know how tough 410 sprint car racing is. It's some of the toughest competition that you'll ever face in your life, and when you have engines that you're looking for all the power you can get for qualifying, and as soon as you're done qualifying you're immediately trying to detune the engine and knock 100 horsepower out of it. That that's a different mindset, and so even though our engineers at TRD felt like they could tackle it, I knew that we needed the experience and the know-how, and we didn't need to act too proud. We needed to ask for the help, and we needed to involve Rick and Tom very, very in depth right away. And I think that's one of the reasons, as you say, Ford Motor Company is a great company, and the people that they have working on their engines are smart people, and even Ron today, Ron Shaver is a hero of mine, and I would have asked Ron to be involved in the Tier D project if he wasn't already heavily involved in the Ford
Mhm.
at that time. But I think that is what makes it different is, our experience and how we guided the program was different because we let the people that had a lot of experience and a lot of respect in the community were actively and hands-on, and it wasn't another um, manufacturer coming in just thinking that they were going to be able to outsmart everyone or outdesign everyone, because you're not. And you have to find there's a lot of good engine builders, and the current baseline engine is has been refined and polished for a long time, right? 40 years. And you're just not going to come in and design something and smoke everyone. That's not going to happen.
When did the first Toyota roll out in a 410 sprint car?
We we first rolled out in 2021
Mhm.
at in Georgia, at the start, the practice days in February with Gio Selzy, when Gio was driving Matt Barbara's 18
Yep.
car. So we first started there, ran a little bit quickly. Uh, The first night, we were in the garage area getting ready to roll out as a practice night before the season started, and it was a all-star show,
Yep.
and literally an hour before practice is going to start, we had a Ryder engine in it because Tom Ryder got his engine done first, and that was in the car. And I got a phone call from Rick Long literally an hour before practice started and said, "Hey, we were just running our engine on the dyno and it blew up. The crank broke." And so we were like, "Oh gosh, this is going to be a long night." But we didn't have any problems for a couple of nights with the Ryder engine. But then we had the same issue. We broke a crank. Maybe this, I don't know, maybe the third night as well. So we had some crank issues we had to work through. Obviously, this is at the start of 2021, so we had just gone through COVID, and COVID had delayed us most of 2020, and of course, as you know, we still the world still suffers from the COVID effect
Sure.
today, but in 2021 it was way harder at that point in time. And so 21 was a little hit and miss. We'd run for a little while, and then we'd have to pull the engines back and try to get stuff fixed, go back again and run. So we were hit and miss in 21, very, very limited. Uh, we had the crank issues. We had some head gasket, head sealing issues as well. Um, and we finally did, by the end of the year, we actually, NARC had a special non-points, non-wing race that we won with Tyler Courtney, and so that was officially the first win for the TRD 410 was in a Roth car, non-wing with Sunshine.
So it progresses. You get some of these things fixed. I mean, I think you were still having some problems in 2023, not as many, but still some issues. What ultimately fixed the issue? Was it just taking it back and reworking it? Input from Tom, from Rick at Speedway, and just, I mean, you don't magically fix things. It just it takes.
Nope. Yep. Oddly enough, Jeremy, two things, and it took us a little while to zero in on them. And we worked with some supplier to change the head gaskets quite a bit, and the crank vendors. And so ultimately we switched to Cali's cranks, and that has been a huge help for us. They've really worked very close with us, and we still primarily use Cali's cranks. So that helped fix that problem. Actually, the head gasket problem probably lingered with us a lot longer than it should have. And that's where we use different suppliers and different construction methods with the head gaskets trying to fix that. Ultimately, one thing that oddly enough, if you look at the current Chevrolet baseline engine that's out there, right? On each side, you have the two center ports are right next, exhaust ports are right next to each other. So everyone actually reverses the water flow of the engines and puts the water in at the top because they're trying to cool that area through the head with the exhaust ports. And when we did it, when TRD designed the head, we had designed for a conventional water flow, which is actually pushing up through the bottom of the block out through the head. And the way the design was, we were actually trapping some air in the heads, air pockets that wouldn't let us get it totally full. So then we were creating hot spots that would end up burning the head gasket. So finally we realized our mistake one day and switched the cooling flow to a conventional water cooling flow up through the bottom of the engine instead of pumping the cold water into the heads, and that helped a great deal. So we did that, and then we still had some issues at the beginning of 23, and we ultimately ended up putting a little more material. Bob and Susie Williams from All Pro helped us identify and add some material to the firing deck because we just couldn't get it where we wanted. So we went back and did a second version of the head casting to put some more meat on the firing deck and keep it from warping. And between those two things, along with plenty of work from our suppliers on the head gaskets themselves, that knock on wood, I'd say it's 99% sorted.
So 2024 rolls around. Now you have two drivers. You have James McFadden and you have Buddy.
Yeah.
James is an engine guy. I know I talked to him a lot last year. How much do you think of a help or a benefit was he to have in camp too? Just, I mean, Rick and Tom can't be at the track every night. whereas James is there. Now, granted, he was running high limit, but still, just from a talking, bouncing, how important was James McFadden to this? And then obviously last year, 11 wins, not bad.
Yeah, James was paramount, and I'll say today he was the unsung hero that really helped us through it. Um, we had James is James doesn't have an ego. He's a great guy. He's not one to point fingers. He's not, whether it's on the car side or the engine side. He'll tell you like it is, but he does it in a professional manner, and doesn't air his dirty laundry out in front of all the public. So he had our backs and he supported us, and he provided a lot of great feedback to not only Tier D but to Rick Long and Tom Ryder. So having James was really one of the big asterisks that helped our program move forward. And then when we added Buddy, they're halfway through 23. But Buddy's a gas man, and you had the two of those guys had such different driving styles where Buddy's more digital, or at least he was at that time. I would say that Buddy's evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years with us, but at that time, Buddy was digital. He was either on the gas or he's off the gas. And James likes to pedal a car a lot. He's a lot of part throttle. So when you have someone that's running a lot of part throttle and driving with his right foot, you have to have an engine that's connected, and the engine has to be able to respond to all those little movements. It has to run clean. It has to have really good drivability. And so he helped us clean up a lot of that stuff. And that was huge for us. But really grabbing those two groups, James and Brent Ventura, and then Buddy and Dylan, and using both of those guys and their different styles and how they go about talking about their car and what they want from the engine, it let us attack both styles from both directions at the same time, and make sure that when we made a change that was helping James, we'd get the feedback from Buddy making the same change to him. And it helped us identify, okay, this one particular update might help James, but it's going to hurt Buddy, or vice versa. But when we found something that helped both of them, it was a no-brainer. We locked it into the cookbook. So it was huge for us, and we still have a great relationship even today with James. He came back this summer and ran with Tarleton for a while, and we set up a situation in which we loaned them an engine for a little while, and then Tommy Tarleton ended up buying it. So Tommy Tarleton and Drew Warner have actually bought two Toyota TRD 410s that they have now. But James ended up winning 3 or 4 races with TRD engines just this year, and I know I'm already making plans to go visit James and his family over in Australia here come February.
Wow. I mean, so you roll into this year, and I'll get into more of how many Toyotas are out there in a minute. Buddy Kofoid, 12 World of Outlaws wins, 13 overall, $833,000. I'm sure he'd love to camp out at Huset's every week.
Yep.
But he's, from June on, he had more points than even David Gravel. And just the year he had, I mean, for you guys, it had to be big as well as the team.
Yeah, 100%. It's the program and the strength of our program and the strength of the team and all the players. Again, it it comes back to no ego. We, I shouldn't say that. It comes back to keeping your egos in check, because we all have egos, right? And it's working together as a group. And you hear it at least once a night, usually two or three different times a night, when Buddy's getting interviewed. He thanks Dennis and Teresa. He thanks Todd Ventura and myself and TRD and Toyota, and you know Nate and Gage, and of course Dylan. It takes an army, and you need the army to all be on what I like to call, it has to be operating at one heartbeat. You have to be firing on all cylinders. You have to be on the same page. You all have to be believing in the direction of the program. And that's what we have. And that's what we've had for a couple of years, 2.5 years now with those guys, and that group. And when James and Brent were on the road, they were also included in that. But right now, and rolling into this year, um, Todd Ventura and myself, we sat down at the end of 2023, and we laid out goals for Buddy and Dylan, and said, hey, 2024, what's important to us is we want to run, we want you to win Rookie of the Year with the World Outlaws, and our second goal is to run top five in points. At the same time, over on James's side with High Limit, we just wanted to run top five in points as well. Those two teams achieved all three of those goals. We also told them at the same time, when we get to 2025, we want to run top three in points. And then when we get to 2026, we want to be a serious contender to run for the championship. And so far, from Buddy and Dylan's side of the house, they've met every single goal that we've laid at their feet, and we're trying to do it very systematically. And we provide them with data after every event, of, okay, this is what it takes, this is what David's doing, this is what he scores on an average night in order to run at the level that he's running. And how are we going to fine tune what we're doing? It's not going to be a big tear up, but it's all about details. How do we get ourselves in that spot to be able to compete with David on a night in, night out? And obviously Carson is extremely tough as well.
Compare Buddy when you first met him to now.
Buddy is definitely has way more confidence. Buddy, not that he never believed, or not that he ever had any doubts in the system, but the people around him now, he has got complete faith in. He knows that we all have his back. He knows that we're trying to lay out a plan that'll achieve success. He's very, very rare. Do you ever see Buddy make a mistake? Extremely rare. He takes what it gives him, but he doesn't get himself in bad spots either very often. So, overall, racecraft wise, how he's adapting to all the tracks on the tour, he just keeps getting better and better, and there's no doubt. I don't think anyone will argue when you talk about, okay, who are the best three sprint car drivers in the nation. Boy, you can't leave Buddy off that list.
No, you can't. And how many TRD motors are out there now? I mean, obviously Roth has theirs and Tarleton has a couple. Does anybody else have them right now?
No, not right now. It's just the Roth engines. So we have TRD has a pool of engines, and then Roth actually own a couple of their own engines that they have bought. that they use in the second car. Like we just ran Canon Macintosh in the second Roth car for a handful of races, and that was using some of the Ross engines.
Mhm.
And then Tarleton has a couple of engines now. So, but it's so hard. I know one of the themes at the moment, it seems like all the major engine builders are they're slammed with work. If you call up Tom Ryder right now, he'll tell you his waiting list is a year and a half long. And so it just makes it hard for people to get engines right now. But we've definitely got a lot of people that are interested in talking to us more and more, and I'm starting to have conversations with one or two other engine builders outside of Speedway and Ryder, to expand our base of engine builders to try to meet the demand that we feel is coming for the Tier D engine.
So the plan is to still sell it to the public.
Yes,
And
we've we it they're available right now to buy.
okay. Now price wise, are they in the same amount as anything else? I mean, because price point's always important. Is that something you guys were able to keep competitive with the other engine manufacturers, I guess?
Yeah, if you go to Ryder right now and ask him for costs, and if you go to Speedway right now, if someone were to walk up and say, what would be the cost of buying a brand new Chevy engine versus a Toyota, it'd be within $3,500.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
When do you, so now people can do that. And do you think people, do you think a year like this by the Roth team is going to spark more people to do that? And is it just about proving yourself over time that's going to make this thing, for lack of a better term, blow up where you're selling, where you're cutting into the market with a lot of power plants out there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I believe are factoring into it. Obviously, Jeremy, as you said, 24, we still had some niggling problems. I mean, uh, to run fourth in the world of outlaw points is is no small task in itself, but we still had some issues here and there, that we had to clean up. I think 2025 was pretty spectacular and was great. And I think that's helped change. I know I've had, when I do, unfortunately, I don't get to go to as many sprint car races as I'd love to, but when I do go, I know this year, and especially the second half of this year, I've had so many people come to me and say, man, it really is amazing at how competitive your engines are, how competitive Buddy is, and the reliability now is there without losing anything on the performance side. And and so we know we've caught a lot of people's attention. But at the same time, it's hard when you have, we won't sell parts to anyone other than Speedway and Ryder at the moment. And the reason why we're trying to do it that way is to make sure that the product that we do put out there is top shelf. And and that's not to say that some of the other engine builders can't do a good job, but it just takes a little while and the engine is different, and to get your arms around it. So we're trying to be careful how we introduce it. And but again, I think Tarleton, we loaned them that one engine, and they won the Cappy with it, at Knoxville. And then they ended up buying the engine from us and bought another one from us because they were so tickled to death and happy with it. So um, I think it's hard for some teams as well that want to focus on consistency. If you know that it's hard to get engines, whether it's a Chevy or a Toyota, a Tier D 410, it's so hard to get engines out of the engine builders these days with the long lines of people trying to buy engines. It, you can't just put in an order for 4 or 5 engines to swap your whole program over. You're
Right.
only going to be able to add an engine here or there. I had one of the owners um, that runs full time on the Outlaw Tour. I had a meeting with him at Knoxville this year. He wanted to order 5 engines, and I called both places, and they just couldn't do it. And so if he couldn't have 5 engines by the time we started 2026, he's like, I'm sorry, if I can't have 5 engines, I just need to wait a little bit longer, and we respect that. So that's I think that's part of why we're seeing a little bit of a slow introduction at the moment.
Obviously, Speedway, uh, with the retirement, and kind of being, I guess, sold now. I mean, it's kind of vague. Um, what's the status of TRD there? No changes at all?
So I'm sure some announcements will be coming in the near future, Jeremy. And it's not my place to make the announcement, but obviously I'm privileged to the information that knows that Speedway engines are going to be in good hands for a long time, and obviously our entire midget program runs through Speedway, and right now 50% of our TRD 410 program does. So we were a very vested party to and interested in making sure that was going to be in good hands when Rick does finally decide to retire, and we feel we understand what the plans are, and we feel really good about that.
I'll talk to you off air about it because I think I know where it's going. Uh, for you personally, you've been doing this a long time. It seems like you still love it. You get around the country. Obviously, you like to travel. So,
Yep.
how long do you do this? And you've got to feel accomplished that you were a big part of pulling this off with so many people, and you guys are in a good spot now with the 410 deal.
Yeah, I'm very proud. Personally, I mean, my pride for TRD to be able to pull this off has there's a lot of pride there. A lot of people at TRD, they're watching Dirt Vision at night, keeping their eyes on Buddy and cheering for him, and I can always tell if I'm tied up in a business dinner or something somewhere around the country. I always know when we win because I end up getting about 50 text messages from TRD employees congratulating me on the win. So, but obviously for myself personally, there's no doubt it's something that I'm super proud of. I'm proud of the people that have participated in the program to date, and especially proud of Buddy and Dylan, and so honored that Dennis and Teresa Roth and everything that they've done for the sport, and Todd Ventura, for them to entrust TRD and welcome us in to be part of the family. And they don't make a decision without consulting with us, and I think we treat it just like that. Our partnerships are like family, and the way that program's rolling right now, I've got immense pride, and I feel really good about it. And one day when I retire, that'll be that'll be one of the biggest feathers in my cap for me personally.
Well, it's looking good. It's on its way. And Andy, thank you very much for joining a deep dive. I appreciate it. You're one of the guys who was on my list. I wanted to get on. And it just, with the season that Buddy had, it just seemed appropriate to have it right after the World of Outlaws season. So, again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate everything that you do for sprint car racing, and getting the news out there. And I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. That's going to wrap up another edition of the SprintCarLimited.com deep dive presented by Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA. Thank you very much to Andy Graves for joining us on the show. A lot of good stuff there, very informative. If you like the content on our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can also check out our daily exclusive content at sprintcarunlimited.com. We'll be back next week with another edition of The Deep Dive.